Some critics had complained that Matt Fraction and Jorge Jimenez's run on Batman has been a bit slow. There are a lot of moving parts: Vandal Savage's takeover of the Gotham City Police Department, his war against Batman, and Houston, the teenage boy who has evidence of Savage's corruption, but can't seem to get any news outlets to publish it. Then there's a new villain, the Minotaur, optimizing the criminal gang's operations, expanding into some legitimate businesses, with the aim of making them more money than they ever dreamed. And how could I forget Dr. Zeller's Crown of Storms, a potential cure for insanity that not everyone is happy about. And there's smaller plot points too, like Tim Drake's retirement, Damian's offer to go to university, and that weird gas leaking up from the sewers in several issues. There's a lot going on, so you can understand why sometimes these plot points take a backseat for a couple of issues, while Batman gets a coffee with the Golden Age Green Lantern to talk about why Vandal Savage is such a dick. But then you get the events of Batman number 9, where Savage's crusade against the Bat family comes to a head. He launched dozens of raids on facilities suspected of being Batman safe houses and captured Barbara Gordon, sending her to his supermax prison for Gotham's most dangerous criminals and the people that he just doesn't like. As disastrous as that sounds, everything was going according to plan though. In fact, I can almost hear Matt Fraction's voice coming from the characters when they tell each other, and us the reader, to trust the plan. There is very clearly a large overarching plan for this book, and issue 10 is another significant stop in our journey. Fraction has publicly stated that he is pretty far ahead on the scripts for this series, so far ahead that he sometimes has to come back and adjust his scripts to accommodate the wider direction of the Batman books, and you can really tell that he has meticulously planned everything out. And while the pace may at times feel a little slow, you do get issues like this one where things lunge forward. So the last issue ended with Batman making his own targeted move against Vandal Savage by blowing up Wayne Manor. Remember that Savage had bought the mansion out from underneath Batman to gain access to a trinket in the Batcave, and Savage's response to this is just to laugh. He actually seems to be enjoying this game between himself and Batman. And to be fair, this was probably apparent by the fact that he knows who Batman is under the mask and he hasn't specifically gone after Bruce Wayne. To Savage, this is clearly entertainment. He doesn't want to just defeat Batman, he's also trying to turn the city against him and tarnish his legacy. From the small things like making the press refer to the Bat family as the Batman crime family, to his imaginatively titled campaign, Rat Out the Bat, where he offers civilians cash in exchange for information that leads to Batman's capture. Yes, Savage thinks very little of people and believes he can just pay them to compromise their values. Whether that pays off remains to be seen, but I'd like to think that most people in Gotham are aware of Batman's good work and wouldn't be interested in taking Savage's dirty money, but you never know. Now, one of the older plot points that has been left on standby for a few issues was how the Minotaur had disciplined the 7 crime families when they turned on each other. The Minotaur made it clear that there was too much money and power at risk of being lost because of their petty posturing, so he made the stakes abundantly clear to them by rounding up each leader's loved one and executing them. This seems to bring most of the leaders back under his control, although the Penguin has made it clear that he plans to kill the Minotaur. But there is another gang leader that we need to pay attention to, Dantai Tsuzuki, the head of Gotham's Yakuza. While other leaders wept and screamed, Tsuzuki was quiet and went about his business. And when we see him this issue, he is sat at the funeral for his loved one before an uninvited guest arrives to share their condolences. The Minotaur has come to remind Tsuzuki that their partnership is not just financially lucrative, it is reciprocal. When one of them suffers, they all suffer. So any enemy to one of them is an enemy to them all. This is relevant because Hugo Strange had paid Tsuzuki's men to kill Dr. Zeller and destroy the Crown of Storms, and when they failed, Strange unleashed his monster men on Tsuzuki's legitimate businesses. The Minotaur says that this attack did not go unpunished, as Savage ordered the Tuco squad to gun down Hugo Strange. And there's some really pointed commentary here about overzealous policing and how these people, who were supposed to protect and serve, are instead shooting first and not asking any questions. Although I have to say that this isn't the first time that a corrupt official has murdered Hugo Strange, and given that he was seen tinkering with reanimated flesh, I suspect this won't be the last we see of him. Regardless, Strange's murder is presented as a peace offering and further illustrates the corruption of Savage's Tuco squad, as if it were necessary. By the way, if you are enjoying this video, please do hit the subscribe button, because I know that 60% of you are not subscribed. And if you don't subscribe, my channel will never grow and I will never succeed, and I'll cry and cry and cry until I'm sick and sick and sick. Thank you. The next point to get some development is Dr. Zeller's Crown of Storms. At a board meeting at Wayne Enterprises, Batman is surprised to hear that Dr. Zeller has submitted paperwork to shut down her project. Quite what this means remains a mystery though, as we saw the project was very successful, and she seems to be a firm believer in the potential of the Crown of Storms. Has she found another backer? Perhaps she's been persuaded to step away, or maybe something else entirely. Whatever's going on, it takes Batman by surprise, but he has to maintain his composure. We get a small glimpse at his true feelings though when one of his obnoxious executives tells him that he has an alternative use for all that titanographene, a rare, expensive, ultra-durable metal. He argues that the military applications would see their stock value triple overnight, and Batman's response is to closely examine the tablet with the chart and then hurl it across the room. And this is where we get some more relevant commentary, as this weak-chinned walking overbite of an executive tells Batman that they have an obligation to increase company profits as much as possible because they are publicly traded. If you look at the graph he showed Batman, you can see that Wayne Enterprises is a profitable company. Even with the hit they were taking by funding Dr. Zeller's research, that desire for endless growth regardless of the cost echoes the Minotaur's philosophy. With that kind of money, they can do anything. And that single sentence is what makes things click in Batman's head. And I have to say, I genuinely laughed out loud when Batman had the realization that his enemy, this mysterious figure disrupting Gotham's criminal underworld, is a capitalist. Now, I'm sure some of you will point out that, well, yeah, and so is Batman, but I think this comic tries to make a distinction between types of capitalism. Instead of pursuing unchecked corporate greed, Batman filters his business decisions through a strict moral lens. He refuses to fund things that will cause harm, opting to use Wayne Enterprises as a vehicle for social good, funding public housing for Gotham Citizen while using the company's tech developments to personally fight the crime that systemic poverty creates. I don't think it would be inaccurate to say that this kind of ethical capitalism is very rare in the real world, and gets overshadowed by the more ruthless industrialists. At the very least, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, but remember that this is a fictional character we're talking about. You need to be able to suspend some disbelief. With that piece of the puzzle in place, Batman opts to head out and remind Gotham that despite what Savage says, he is still very present. For much of this issue, Savage has been doing a media tour boasting about how well the Tuco squad did in their raids on Batman. There were 17 successful raids on Batman's secret bunker. No, 24. Actually, 35. 44 even. The endless boasting and exaggeration of his accomplishments being fed to the media, who lap it up without question, again feels like relevant commentary on the unprecedented times in which we live. Savage is literally on the record providing false information that contradicts himself, and yet no one pushes back on it. The narrative is in place. Savage has destroyed the Bat family, seized Batman's computers and assets, and they are mere hours away from uncovering all of his secrets. In effect, Batman is no more. Yeah, right. As I mentioned when discussing the last issue, every part of Savage's victory was a controlled loss. The arrest of Barbara Gordon was intentional. It allowed her access to Savage's Supermax prison and allowed the younger members of the team to escape harm-free. As Barbara says in a pre-recorded message to the team, trust the plan. While many criminals in Gotham believe they had free reign over the city, Batman shows them just how wrong they are, capturing armed robbers, taking out gunmen and putting out fires across the whole city in one evening. Along the way, he deposits small containers, strategically placing them throughout the city, and when the time is right, he shows his hand. Batman cuts off the power to the GCPD, leaving them in darkness, while he lights up the sky with over 3,000 drones forming the Bat Signal 2.0, letting everyone know that he is still there, despite what Savage says. And there's a very uplifting message here from Barbara. No matter what you hear on TV or what Savage says, Batman always wins. And we can take some inspiration from these words, and no, I'm not suggesting that you put on a cape and a cowl and go around beating up bad guys. But what I am saying is that we shouldn't waste our energy shouting at a television screen that refuses to listen. When authority figures use propaganda and overzealous enforcement to manufacture a false reality, the best counter-offensive is to do the often unseen work on the ground until you can collectively light up the sky with a truth so bright it makes their lies completely impossible to sustain. Batman number 10 is available now from all good comic shops. If you love deep dives into Gotham's dark side, you aren't going to want to miss next week's videos, where I will talk about Absolute Catwoman number 1 and Barbara Gordon Breakout number 2. But the real action is happening with my channel members, the Back Issue Brigade. They voted on which videos they wanted me to make, so I'll be talking about Paul Dini's Dark Knight and The Long Halloween. To see both of these videos when they drop, and vote on what we discuss next, join the channel now.